Hey everybody, this is a video that I've owed you for a little while. I told you a couple weeks ago that I was going to get it to you. Things have gotten in the way in between then. No idea what I'm referencing. Maybe you have an idea. This isn't anything to do with Barker or the thing that he and I just worked on together, the podcast, whatever you want to call it. It seems like you guys like that, so we'll hopefully be making another one soon. He asked a lot of good questions, so I'm excited to answer those. But this is about my Genius Hour project. It's the pictures I took of the old Davie High School. Some of you maybe went there at this point, not a lot of you. But I wanted to go through and explain them, walk through why I took them and why they're important to me. And I think it's important for you to not necessarily understand where I'm coming from, but as part of my project, I think it's important for you to see my reasoning behind them, and it wasn't just for nostalgia's sake. So here we go. So the first one that you'll see on there is the press box, and I took that from the corner of the track, kind of near the road, if you've been to Old Davie, and looking from what would be, I guess, turn one, if you're a track person. And that was really important to me because, as I said in my post, I don't know if you read it, it's where I spent a lot of my time growing up. My mom was the band director for a long time at Davie, and I spent a lot of my Friday nights there. And I then became a member of the band in my first year, my freshman year. Davie still sat on that side, maybe freshman and sophomore. I can't remember at this point. It was before they renovated the other side, which became the home side, which was weird because the home side was then not on the side with the press box, but that's a different story for a different day. But it's one of the first places where I also learned that I'm actually terrified of heights. I assume some of you probably share that fear. Terrified. Absolutely just. I know it's not that far up to go to the top of the press box, but I tried to walk up there because I got the chance to watch a football game from the top of it, which would have been really cool if I wasn't absolutely scared to death. It's also where, I kind of started making some of my first friends in high school, were those early football games. As you know, they start before school does. And I kind of started meeting people that were in band and speaking with them and learning more about them, and being on the drumline, it helped. The upperclassmen kind of took care of us, however you want to think that went. But it was really kind of the beginning of me learning what high school was. And it wasn't just that, it was that I got to see it, when I was 4, and then I got to see it when I was 14, when I started high school. And to be on both sides of that was a really cool experience that I wasn't already expecting, but looking back on it, it's actually even more cool than it was when I was there. So that's why that one's important to me. So the next one that you'd see after you leave the stadium, you would walk back and you would see C&E building, or where C&E building used to be. When we marched to the stadium, again I was on drumline, we would always walk by part of what's not there anymore. We had to go around those buildings, C building, E building, D building, and it's where the office was, and E building is where I had some of my favorite science and history classes with Mr. Bird. And I know none of you know Mr. Bird and Mr. Hoyle. They were great teachers. I was really glad to have them. They influence how I teach you, honestly. I had them, in 2000, oh goodness, 2002, 4, and 5, somewhere along those lines. And they influence how I teach you in 2018, 19, 20, whatever it's been. But walking through there, it was just really kind of crazy to see a lot of. It was the first realization I had that the place that I made a lot of memories wasn't there anymore. And I knew that I'd driven by, but it's the first time that really it started to sink in that old Davie was gone. And I'm going to talk later about how I feel about that. But that's the first time when I looked out and saw nothingness. I could see all the way from the weight room to K building, is when it really started to sink in. So the next one up is the Memorial Garden. And it's important to me for a couple of reasons. One of them is that I remember when it was built. It was built by a couple teachers that were there when my mom was there. I wasn't probably much more than maybe a middle schooler at the time, if that. I don't even remember, to be honest with you. But I remember there were a couple of students that my mom had that passed away when they were in high school. One had a pretty rare disease, and the other was hit by a drunk driver. And they kind of took care of me when my mom was busy doing band things and couldn't be there. And they, kind of helped me feel comfortable and gave me this presence that, I was cared for. And it really kind of influenced me without me recognizing it at the time. But it didn't hit me until I was older because they were older than me, and it's not ever good to lose anybody, but you expect people who are older than you to pass away before you do. But they were 16 or 17 years old, and that's not old at all. That's what you guys are, or maybe are about to be. And there's times when I listen to you and I just, kind of watch you interacting with each other, and you're having fun and you're talking and joking around. And I just think back to my days of being your age and hope that you're able to not experience that. And I hope that you don't experience the next thing, which is I have a friend whose name is in the memorial garden, and his name is actually on one of the bricks that transferred over to the high school. It was my junior year, and he had an accident. He lost control of his car, and he hit a tree, and he didn't make it. And I remember he was 16 when he died, and I realized as I was out there in one of your classes, actually, I was looking at his brick and realized that it's 16 years since he's been gone. And I don't say this to be a downer, but I want you to know that, sometimes when you think I'm not listening, or you think I'm not paying attention, or if you think I don't care, that's definitely not true. I'm just hoping that you get to have a high school experience without having to deal with that. That's, maybe not going to be true. I don't know. And we all have to deal with it sometime. But that one's important to me because it is sad, and I do think about my friend from time to time. But it's part of growing up. It's something we all have to deal with, and it's something that we all have to help each other get through one way or another. The next picture is the corner of the old K building. It's actually the band room. The dance room is right beside it. Theater, it was the arts wing, basically, if you want to think of it like that. It's where I spent, a lot of my time. I played sports. I was in honors and AP classes, and I was a band kid. Kind of did a little bit of everything. And I spent a lot of time there, and especially being on drumline, I spent a lot of Fridays there. And I just, between marching band and concert band and symphonic band, and we didn't have wind ensemble at the time, so I couldn't do that. But between all those things, so much of my time at Davie was spent in that room or around that room. And I remember we used to play backyard football into the grassy area off to the right. On Fridays before game days. We always had fun, and we picked teams, and sometimes, we'd have to play all-time quarterback and all that. But I remember one day we were going to play, and we had a substitute, and I had to convince this substitute that it's actually a thing that we did, and that we actually should be allowed to play, and we went to. And we tried to be really, really careful. We did not want to get anybody in trouble. We didn't want to get written up. We didn't want any kind of, future drama to happen where we wouldn't be able to play. So it was like pass number 3. My friend is running a go route and just doesn't look up and just absolutely runs headfirst into a tree. And we normally would have laughed at him, but the first thing we did was try to drag him underneath the window so the sub couldn't see that he was hurt. And we had him sit there and make as little noise as possible. So maybe 10 minutes goes by, and we're just pretending like he's not even there at this point. And he decides he's good to play, and he wants to come back in. And so we throw another pass, and it goes in his direction, and I cannot make this up. The pass leads him right into one of the telephone poles, which is out there, and he pretty much just runs dead into that again. And we decided that was probably just best to call it there, to cut our losses, and to move on, and just, make sure we had backyard football to continue in the future. So as we leave the band room, we're going to go around the whole school, and we're going to end up back in the football stadium. And the reason I had these side by side and not in a different order, even though we've already been in the stadium, is this is where a lot of my upperclassmen years were spent on Friday nights. Of course, we were in the band section and everything, but that's about the exact spot that I was standing in when Davie played football games. And I remember standing there and looking at the end zone that the picture is taken of. And we were in the state semifinals. We were undefeated. It was 14-0. And the last pass of the last game of the season bounced off the receiver's hands that would have won the game for us and sent us to the state championship. And we just couldn't believe, we had so much luck going for us all year. We were, won some close games that maybe we shouldn't have. And we thought that, of course, he was going to catch it. And it just bounced right off his hands, and no one really knew what to do. We had, a good run of success, and we just, I don't want to say took it for granted, but we just kind of figured that we'd find a way to come back and win. And, sometimes life isn't a movie. Often life isn't a movie, and you don't get the ending that you want. But again, that's part of growing up and learning how to deal with that, learning how to deal with failures and not having things go to plan and how you bounce back for it. I think that's one of the biggest things to learn from high school is really how to start bouncing back from when things don't go to plan or your way. And how you react to that is kind of who you are, and it shows your character. And the better you can get at finding a new plan or finding the more positive way to react is going to help you in the future. And that's easy for me to say. And I wouldn't have done well with it when I was your age. But that's why I'm telling you now is every little bit helps, and every little bit that you can make better now is less that you have to fix later. It's worth it to go ahead and start getting a better reaction to criticism or to failures or something like that. And don't look at failure as a stopping point. Look at it as a lesson learned. Bounce from it. Think of what you messed up. Think of what you can improve. Move on from there. I did that, maybe not in this circumstance, but it's helped me in the future. Helps me now. Maybe it'll help you in the future too. All right, we're a little over halfway through at this point. Again, you're looking at empty lots. You look out to the gym, to the back of it anyway, and what you're seeing is what used to be E-Building, which was the science building. And it's where I taught my first class at Davie. I was in E1, the computer lab. It wasn't too far from the media center, and I actually wasn't even teaching science at this point. I was teaching kind of a math class for upperclassmen. And I remember walking in on the first day of that year absolutely terrified. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how it was going to go. I didn't know how the kids were going to react to me. I didn't know how I was going to react to them. I was just full of unknowns. And it was really one of the scariest moments of my professional life. I was not the teacher that I am now, and hopefully that's something that you guys like. That's hopefully a teacher that you enjoy and like being around and like being in my class, but I was not good at the beginning. Maybe some of you don't think I'm good now. That's fine. That's neither here nor there. But it was just an absolute learning curve and a learning experience that I had to deal with that made me grow up really quickly. And I will say it was a small class. It was about 12 people, all seniors, maybe one junior. And then second period, I had an honors earth and environmental class that are currently seniors. It's the graduating class of this year. I learned a lot that first year, especially the first semester. Things didn't go to plan. I had to figure it out. I had to figure out how to take the knowledge that I do know and apply it to something you can understand. Easier said than done. Without those experiences, I would not be who I am. I honestly went home the first day and was like, I'm going to quit. I'm not even going to go back for day 2. And each day I just had to keep telling myself it's going to get a little better. It's going to get a little better. It did. I had a lot of teachers help me. I wouldn't be here without some of them. But don't quit on things just because they're hard. Don't quit on things because it's difficult. And don't quit on things because you're not the best. You're never going to be the best if that's what your mentality is. So just keep working. Push through it. Keep getting better. Keep finding ways to improve. Eventually, if you have the talent, and I know a lot of you have a lot of talent, it will start to show and people will recognize it. So keep going. I did. I still don't know if I'm good or not. I have no idea where I really stand, but I know I'm a lot better than I used to be, and that's the race that matters. Are you better than yesterday? Good. You did something right. So this is looking out the top of the bleachers back towards the gyms. Then I'm going to keep this one quick. Obviously, I watched basketball games and volleyball games and things like that in there. I had my PE class in there, and there was the pool on top of the new gym, the small gym, whatever you want to call it, that we used sometimes. Not a lot, it's kind of weird, but whatever. But I remember being at basketball camp in 4th grade and getting picked up by my parents and just thinking like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to play basketball. I want to be really good at that. And I worked and I got really good at shooting, and I actually got really good at threes and free throws, and I was really just a pure shooter. And then I realized I'm not good at actually playing basketball. I'm good at shooting, but I'm terrible at playing basketball. I kept trying to pretend that I was better than I was, and then middle school ended and I stopped growing at about 6 feet and other people didn't, and I realized I probably need to focus on something else. That's when I moved over to tennis. I enjoy that way more than I enjoy basketball, though I do like shooting around and seeing if I still have my shot anymore. I don't really, if you're thinking about it. But, it's good to have hobbies that you're not necessarily going to focus on because, it lets you do a change of pace. It lets you kind of unwind, and maybe you can meet some other friends that way. Who knows? Try something new. All right, I'm going to keep this one pretty short. This is where the Breezeway would have been. And after football games, we were usually in a pretty good mood. We typically won more than we lost when I was at Davie. And we would march back from the stadium and go through the parking lot and go through the Breezeway and kind of walk on back down to K Building, what I showed you before. And we totally didn't do this ever, and don't tell anybody, this is going to be our little secret. But the drumline sometimes would have little games with itself to see if we could set off more car alarms than the week before, depending on how loud we played. We never did that ever. I'm totally just making this up, and don't tell anybody. But we did, sometimes, maybe, never. And it sounds dumb, and it is dumb. And, looking back on it, it doesn't seem that fun if you weren't there. But being part of that and being part of a group and being with your friends, whether it's, arts or sports or academics or none of the above, and you're just hanging out, it's, kind of what I think high school is about. Yes, of course, you should study. Yes, of course, you should work hard. Yes, of course, you should, volunteer and be in clubs and stuff like that. But it's about finding or beginning to find who you are and the groups of people that you want to be around. Some of you make good choices with that. Some of you maybe not so much, but you have time to fix it. So just think about who you're around and what they're trying to get you to do, and if that's a good decision for you or not. Sometimes you have to say no to your friends, and that's a hard thing to do, and that's something I had to learn how to do too. Because, you want your friends to like you, but at the same time, think about the consequences that your choice may have. Playing loudly with drums is not, going to hurt you in the long run. But just think about, who you're around in high school and the choices you make, and what that might mean for you moving forward, especially as you start to apply to college in the age of social media. There's a tip for you. Didn't ask for it, but I gave it to you anyway. All right, we made it to the end. Hopefully you made it with me. If you didn't, that's fine too. The last one probably means the least to you as a picture, but means one of the most to me, if not the most. It's parking spot number 50. That was the spot that everybody wanted, and it was my spot my senior year at Davie. Why is it important? It's not in the grand scheme of things. It's a parking spot with a number. You have those now. But it's the one where, I got to get the spot that everybody wanted. I got lucky. I, met people that way because it was right there near the Breezeway, and people stopped to talk to me, and I got to see, different parts of the morning and afternoon as groups would come in and out depending on how early or late you stayed or got there. And it really, while was really stupid, it was something I remember, and I don't know why I remember it. But when I went back to teach at Davie, I went to go see it just to see who had the spot now and what kind of car was parked there, and realized that it was underneath a bunch of trailers. I figured it was probably gone. I figured they probably tore it up to put the trailers there, the foundation or whatever. And then when I went back to take this picture, I walked over expecting to see nothing, and it was there. And it was kind of just a weird flood of emotions coming back, thinking about parking there and getting there in the mornings and leaving, and who my friends were and us hanging out and things like that. It's a parking spot. It's 2-3 lines painted on pavement. But it's weird how little things like that stick out to you. You'll probably have something like that too. Maybe it's not a parking spot, but it's something that seems insignificant to everyone but you. But it's important to you, and that's all that matters. So, you made it through. Thanks for listening. If you did, thanks for putting up with my rambling. If you've had me in class, thanks again for putting up with my rambling. You know, it's not the first time. It won't be the last. I just want to leave you with some final thoughts and what my opinions are. And if you know me, or if you've seen anything I've been doing, you know I'm not going to get political. And I'm not here to talk about the vote. I'm not here to talk about one or two, or however you want to phrase it. But what I really enjoy is that in a place like Davie, as much as sometimes Davie doesn't want to move forward into something else, and maybe they want to stick with the good old days, whatever that means, I'm glad that you have a new high school, because a new facility of some kind was absolutely needed. And it is absolutely sad for me to look back at my high school days and see that the buildings that I made a lot of my memories in are gone. And it's sad to see that the stands that I first marched to are gone. And it's sad to see that the building that I first taught in is gone. But it's just a building. Buildings don't really matter to me. I still remember the things I did there. I still remember the friends I had. I still remember all the fun things that, we did at lunch during homecoming week, or that we, hung out with in the parking lot, or football games, or tennis trips, or anything like that. Those are what stick with you, not the physical building. And I'm glad that we were able, as a community, to move forward to build a new high school that you will get to make your memories in, and that you will get to look back on in 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 years and think about, oh, I remember this friend, or I remember when we did that, or I remember this game that we won in, overtime or something like that. But the building won't matter. The memory is what matters. And most of you are probably going to roll your eyes at this, and I maybe would have too at your age, but I just want you to know that it's good to be introspective sometimes. Just don't get stuck in your own head, because that never leads to a good path. Be happy that you're in a good place, but don't accept it as good enough. Always push forward, always want more, always ask questions, and always try to be better. And it doesn't matter if where you came from is different, or if where you're going is elsewhere. You are always going to be who you make yourself. So just be the best person you can, make the best choices, keep pushing forward, and enjoy it.